Hello there, everyone. This is Lee Andrews from Akathame twice in one day. Can you believe this? I will stay up past my bedtime for Joel Lalgee. Lalgee? Did I say that right?
Lalgee. Yeah, you got it. You
okay.
did. You did great.
Staying up way past my intended bedtime, and this is going to be worth it because this is going to be a heart-to-heart discussion about recruiting. One of the reasons that I am not actively recruiting right now is because I'm doing research and I want to find out what is going on under the sheet, so to speak, as to why people, candidates and clients and recruiters are all complaining about the recruiting process. So Joel and I are just going to sit down and have this conversation. If you have questions, you can put them in YouTube or LinkedIn. We're streaming live on both those platforms, accepting all your questions. And I am going to start with a question that was already sent by one of apparently your viewers. Joel, you have a following. You've got a fairly large following too on LinkedIn. So the first question is, what the hell, Joel? I'm just gonna copy and paste this in here. What the hell, Joel? Why am I constantly getting rejection letters immediately after I send in my resume? Why am I just getting rejected? I mean, it doesn't even take, it takes seconds. It takes seconds. And these guys are getting rejection letters.
I mean, to me, that is better than what I hear it goes on a lot of the time, which is not hearing anything back. So I guess I think I would rather have a no than just be completely ghosted. But my first thought would be potentially the positions that you're applying to aren't actually a good fit, or there's something in your resume, there's something in the applications you're filling out that are an automatic disqualifier. I could think of, perhaps you don't have a degree and you're applying to positions at companies that 100% require a degree. If you say you don't have a degree, then the ATS, which we all hate talking about, and it's not going to become an ATS conversation, but the ATS will kick you out automatically if you don't have a degree, or if you don't have the requirements that the parameters that they set, then you are probably going to get rejected automatically. So the first thing I would do would be to look at the positions you're applying for and actually look at the job descriptions and match up to your resume and see what areas you may be not hitting. Outside of that, man, it's hard to say. I think we just need a little bit more information on what the positions are, what the companies are. Because in fact, I hear the complete opposite. And I don't know, Lee, if you hear the same thing, that people just don't even hear back, that they'll apply and it's just a black hole. So what are your thoughts with that?
Yeah, so I'm hearing both, but I'm hearing more about the rejection. So last week, I heard from a friend of mine who actually applied for the job, got rejected, and yet the hiring manager had talked to the recruiter about scheduling her for an interview. In fact, she also got an interview the following Monday. I
don't understand how that would work.
So, well, I'll tell you how it worked. She got somebody, she knew somebody inside the organization that was a former colleague. So that's how she made that connection. So it's all about networking. It's really all about networking. So she went, this person went above and around and over, and everything else on this, with this company, and said, I'm going to find this opportunity, and that's all there is to it. And she did. I haven't followed up with her to see how that interview went, but it'll be interesting to see if that ATS was right.
Yeah. Well, and I think that does happen sometimes where, I think I've had a similar situation before where, a candidate I've been working with, they've accidentally received a rejection notice and it's just automated. And so I think anytime you're dealing with computer systems, really anytime you're dealing with people outside of the hiring manager, you can't really trust anything until you hear it from the hiring manager. And to your point, going around that system, whatever they've got in place, and actually getting a hold of somebody within the organization, that's going to help, with any of those issues. But I've had it with candidates that have ended up getting hired where they've received that kind of notice as well. And I tell the hiring managers at the end of the day, you've got to watch out for those types of things, because this person could have received the notice and taken that the wrong way. Luckily, this person understood and they said, "Okay, makes sense." But yeah, I think that's the problem we run into with everything automated.
So see, now that is what's happening. So you've got these really talented UX designers that I typically work with, right? So when I'm in the game, I focus on that creative marketing, particularly in digital design and UX. So here you've got these amazing UX designers who are completely blowing off companies because their recruiting process stinks. The technology doesn't work. There's no communication. They get ghosted. And yet the same complaints are being found on the recruiter side of the desk. They're getting ghosted. They're offering people jobs. Recruiters are offering people jobs that are not showing up.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean,
yeah, I mean,
what the hell is going on?
It's to me, it's always about communication and respecting people. And have I dropped the ball? I've dropped the ball before. I haven't gotten back to people. And I always encourage anybody I deal with, say, hey, if you don't hear back from me within the time frame that I promised, feel free to reach out, and I will give you all of my information. I will give you my LinkedIn, my cell phone. You can text me, you can email me, and I will get back to you. But there's people that fall through the cracks, and so, but I think the heart of it is always just respecting other people's times. And I think it comes down to we live in a society where people don't want to give people bad news because they don't want to hurt their feelings. And so the next best option is to not confront it, and it's to ghost. But really, if it's full cycle, then there's no respect there for other people. There's no communication. And I don't even really know when this started to occur at the rate that it's happening now. It seems like in the last 3 years, it's exploded. And, we see these advances in, like you said, these applications, or, LinkedIn has easy apply, Indeed has easy apply. But let's get real. If you hit easy apply 100 times a day and you apply for 1,000 jobs, you're not going to hear back from all of those people. And if they're receiving 1,000 applicants, it's almost like the system that's supposed to make it easier, it really just makes it harder for everybody.
So now before you got ghosted, the recruiters got ghosted because the candidate was getting 2 and 3 offers at a time. So whoever was the highest,
100%.
Was getting that person, which I think really stinks, right? I think that's bad practice on the candidate's part. And the recruiters on the other side, you're right, they might not want to deliver that bad news, which is really stupid. I'm sorry, but it's really stupid. You have got to close the conversation. You've got to close the loop. That is your responsibility as a recruiter. And if you can't handle delivering bad news, then you're in the wrong job. You're in the wrong job.
Exactly. And it should never really be. I mean, I always tell people when I'm delivering the bad news, it's usually like, hey, this wasn't a good fit, and that's good that we found this out now. And let's see what other opportunities there are. And it's not always going to be a good fit. Now, it can vary from situation to situation. I've seen people go really far in the interview process. We've both seen this, where people go really far and they get really into it, and they've invested a lot of time, and then suddenly they find out they're the second pick. I think when you're dealing with people as a recruiter through that process, I found it's just honesty is the best way. And sometimes that can jeopardize, maybe the fee that you're going to get. But I've never seen honesty not pay off. And maybe it doesn't pay off for you in the deal, in that specific deal, but years down the line, it pays off. Or that person hears about an opportunity and they go, you know what, Joel is a really great recruiter. He can help out with this role. And I think the more we can be honest, the more we combat all of these ghosting and all of these things that are out there that really make us look negative.
And I also think, Joel, that we need to set that expectation up front. I think that if we don't set that communication expectation up front and how things work, and I personally, as a staffing industry recruiter and divisional leader, I would always have conversations with our clients and our talent. This is what you need to be concerned with. You need to be concerned with what you're getting paid. I don't want you worrying about what I'm billing the client, because that's between the client and me. They have a value for the service that I provide. And if you want to go out and find your own job without my help, then do it.
Yeah.
Then do it.
100%.
And you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
All you should be focusing on is what you are going to get paid by this company. And that's it. Because these were not always full-time positions. They were often freelance, right? Very contract. So that even gets even stickier, right? So where was I going with this? Oh, yes. So when I set up that discussion, the first thing I do is I say, this is how it's going to work. Are you okay with this? Is this how you want to work? Do we agree that we're going to have this level of communication and we're going to hold each other accountable for it? And if I don't do what I say I'm going to do, you have every right to call me on it, and vice versa, right? So, I mean, I do everything but make them put blood on a piece of paper, because you're investing your time, Joe. This is your livelihood too.
Yeah. And I think, Jimmy, to your point, where people are, recently at least, or in the recent past, it was a very candidate-driven market. And I still think it is going to be a candidate-driven market again, because of just the amount of talent that's out there and the amount of demand there is. But man, it's a small world too. And a lot of these industries, it's smaller than you think. And it's just short-sighted behavior to particularly ghosting people. I think that's the most short-sighted, but it's like, you're not just ghosting me, you're ghosting the client I'm working with. And I think that's where people, they miss the line, and they don't see that if you ghost me and then I'm dealing with a vice president or I'm dealing with a business owner, and they say, well, what happened to Mr. Smith? Well, he stopped communicating. Then it's just a negative view of that they're going to have of you. And so I would say, if you're in that situation or you've been in that situation, I think you can still come back from those situations. Like, if you feel like you've been ghosting someone, the best thing to do is just to reach out to them. Hey, apologize. Sorry, I haven't been back to you. This is what's been happening. And I think from a recruiter side, if there is a candidate that has you've ghosted, go back around with them and just apologize and just be a human being and apologize. You dropped the ball. And I think that's the important thing. Like, nobody wants to admit they made a mistake. Nobody wants to hurt people's feelings. But inadvertently, if you don't actually deliver bad news, then you are ghosting, which is even worse.
I honestly think, Joel, that some people are okay. There are people out there who do not respect recruiters. They just come right out and tell you that they do not respect what you do for a living. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that wholeheartedly. Then I say, why would I want to work with you? I mean, if it happened. I actually had one candidate who was working with we call them agents back where I came from, but she was reporting on our team. She was reporting into my team, and she had one candidate who not only went around her when on the job, but badmouthed her and belittled her, and do you know what I did, Joel? I called the client and I said, you can have this candidate for free, no charge. If you want him that bad, he's yours. Good luck. God bless. You would have thought that would have given this very large gaming company a heads up. Yeah. Don't you think? When a staffing company says, they're all yours, go for it. I want nothing to do with this man.
You would think.
They hired him.
Well, I think that tells the other part of it, where I think when you're in the recruiting game,
I will never work with that hiring manager again, because if that's the kind of
people are unpredictable.
Right. Yeah. If that's the kind of person she wants to work with, then I will never be able to find a fit for her. And I don't want anybody on my team to try to help that kind of person succeed. Why would I do that?
Exactly.
Why would I do that?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been keeping in mind too, with just recruiting in general is and just business in general, really, is there's going to be people that you can't work with, and there's going to be people that don't want to work with you. And those people are going to be out there. And I think as a recruiter, you want to be working with people and companies that treat you right, and you want to be working with candidates that treat you right as well.
That's
And
right.
to your point, how people act in the hiring process is going to be how they act in real life. And I think if you're dealing with a hiring manager or a company that treats you really poorly as a recruiter, I don't know as a recruiter how you can sleep at night by placing people at those companies, even if they're paying you a really big fee or you're making a lot of money. Because at the end of the day, they're going to treat whoever you place, whoever you put in that seat, they're going to treat that person the way that they're treating you. And so for me, it's like you said, it's a big warning sign. Things like that, I've just learned those are the warning signs. It's not worth my time. Maybe I'll place this person, and 6 weeks later, they're going to be haggling on the fee, or something's going to happen where I'm going to have to replace somebody else because it was a toxic environment. And I think as recruiters, we're the front lines for the candidates, and we're the front lines for the for the companies that we do trust. And we're the ones who really get to see what people's characters are like. It's a unique situation.
Okay, here's your next question. You ready? I've got two more in the queue.
Let's go.
Have you ever fired? It should say, have you ever fired a client?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I have had to fire a couple clients in the past, and I'll give one story. Basically, I had a candidate that was in play, and I thought they were a great candidate. We had a great conversation, and I submitted them over to the client, and the client actually went and Google searched them and found a like a charity page that shared that they had suffered with an illness, and it was like a sponsorship page, and they actually sent me back the person's profile with their name and then the name of the type of illness they had, and then the length of time that the person can live after getting the illness. And I just suffered. I mean, that would be bad enough anyway under any circumstance. I'd be like, I don't even want to work with this guy, obviously. But it actually just been, I think that earlier that week I'd found out one of my good friends had lost their child to a very similar type of disease. So it was just like, after that, and they were a really big client, and I think it came down to the fact that we just didn't want to work with that client anymore, and they understood, and I think so. That was like a horrible situation where, like, after someone does that, I would never want to even put somebody in a position to work with somebody like that. And then even with that company, it's like, if that's the type of people that you've got in leadership, what's wrong with you? Like, how can you even keep a person on board that even if you find that page, all you had to say was like, hey, I'm not interested. You didn't need to outline that whole fact. So that's one case. And then I've had a couple other clients too where we've just had to fire them just purely based on it just being a runaround situation, and just difficult personalities to deal with, and just disrespect a lot of the time, because again, to your point, people don't necessarily have the highest respect for recruiters, and we can kind of seen as these middlemen, these peddlers, and maybe we don't have the industry knowledge. But I think if you start getting a lot of disrespect from people, I don't see another option than firing them and saying, hey, we're not going to work together. And again, to your point, it's like, if you pick that up early, why would you ever? You get to a certain point where you just don't want to place people with those companies, and what are you going to sell candidates on? Like, hey, it's great. These guys are so great to work with. It's like, that's just lying. They're not. So I think at a certain point you have to fire. You got to fire people, and and depending on the relationship, it can be tough. I mean, that first situation, they were a really large client, like a really, really big client, and that was tough because you are giving up money. The second case, maybe it isn't as big a deal, but anytime you give up business that you've had to work hard for, or a relationship that you've had to work for, it's a challenge. So I would say if you run into that, the earlier the better. Just cut the ties, and as you're prospecting, and even if you're prospecting, if somebody treats you poorly, to me that's an early enough sign just to go, hey, there's plenty of other fish in the sea. I'm just going to go find someone who can be respectful. It's not going to hang up the phone, because why would you want to deal with people like that? So that's what it comes down. How about yourself? I'm sure you've got some good.
Oh, I got some doozies.
Yeah.
I got some doozies. But not that many. Not that I can count them all on one hand. With over 30 years of experience, I can count them on one hand. One was actually a woman who accepted the job this was earlier in my career. You kind of make these mistakes once, Joel. And after that, man, you learn really quick. And then the client said to her, why don't you just come on board and we'll bypass your company, the recruiting company. This way I don't have to pay a fee. And you just, stay out a couple of weeks and then come back. Well, she did it. And the interesting part is that she was my friend's girlfriend.
Wow.
That hurt.
Yeah, the people closest to you, those are the ones who always end up.
Well, years later, we used to call it getting slimed. I don't think we call it that anymore, but back in the day we called it we got slimed. So we got slimed, and she came back 2 years later and she said, I get it. I'm sorry. She knew what she did wrong. She admitted it, and she just said, I'm sorry. I will never do that again. I said, of course you won't, because I'm not going to represent you. I'm just not. 100%. I'm sorry. I'm not going there again, because it'll be too tempting for her. It'll be too tempting. The scenario will present itself and it will just be too tempting. The other time was a very large high-tech company who decided to just hire 4 of our people like that.
Wow. Well, those are the hard ones.
So here's
that volume.
I hired the entire client, and I told the person who oversaw the sale of that account, the account director, and I told her, I said, don't fire the client. Don't get rid of your entire client, but do not support that hiring manager. Under any uncertain circumstances, don't support that person. That person does not speak for the entire company, because the company is a multi-billion-dollar international organization.
Sure.
So I said, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So, Yeah,
that makes sense. Am I freezing up a little bit here?
Keep the baby on the bottom. There you go. All right. So here's the next one. Where were you always in construction staffing, and why did you pick that field?
That's a great question. So for my first year and a half to 2 years in recruiting, I was more of a generalist. So I filled positions in engineering, sales, human resources, just a true generalist. And what really attracted to me about the the construction world was, number one, just the conversations are really cool. Like I talk to people who build some of the biggest structures in every city in the U.S. I talk to people that are involved in, huge stadium projects. I got in for a while. I was recruiting and spent a lot of time recruiting the guys that were building these big data centers that are going up. So, Facebook data centers, Google data centers. So I think the construction conversations were just, to me, they're just a lot of fun. And I think the personalities kind of match my personality, where it's kind of just like, to the point, kind of, with those conversations, like, there's definitely guys within the organization you can have some really long, drawn out conversations with. But a lot of people in that industry are very to the point, very direct. And, they just want to find out what the deal is. And so to me, that's kind of my communication style as well. Like, I'm not one to necessarily just beat around the bush. Like, I just want to find out, okay, what are the details? What's going on? What's your background? So it's a lot of conversations, a lot of shorter conversations. And the way the construction world works with recruiting, it's a very relational industry. So the interview process might look like, hey, we're going to go out for a meal, or we're going to go out for a drink. We're just going to get to know each other. And so it's a very relational industry, and I like that about it as well. Now, obviously, for different companies, they do things different ways. Like, obviously, there's companies that will bring people on site and have formal interviews. But a lot of the initial conversations are just like, hey, do we get along are we get along? Like, do we see similar things? Are we going to be able to work together in a high stressful situation? And so then as a recruiter, you really get to know that company and you get to know the culture. You get to really know the people as well. And yeah, and it's just, knowing that I might place somebody and they might be building, like a really cool building in downtown Denver or in Houston. It's just a cool feeling to know, hey, this person's going to work on some really big projects. And I just love having conversations like that. So that's what got me into it. And then that's kind of what's kept me there as well.
So how long have you been doing the construction recruiting piece?
So I've been coming up to 4 years. So
4 years.
I've been in, 4 years, because I was doing, like, even when I was a generalist, I started doing some of the construction positions, and I just picked up on it really quickly, picked up on the terminology, picked up on the lingo, and I had a little bit of construction experience with working in in the banking industry. I would do some construction loans, so I had an idea of the different trades that were involved, and how when the architects would come in and what the planning stage looked like and what estimates look like. And so that gave me at least an idea of how to have conversations in construction. But honestly, I learned something every day, and some of the people I talk to are absolutely insane, and some of the people I talk to are just like super smart, like, and just, when you talk to people who have dealt with billion-dollar projects, it's impressive. And it's a very cool industry.
So you're going to love this. I'm going to have the project manager for the TSA headquarters unification. They had 4 buildings, and they combined them into one in Springfield, Virginia.
Wow.
And we were
that's super
doing
cool.
initial testing. 30, I can't remember how many thousands of people are going to be in that building, but it's beautiful. But it's a green building, and it's
sure,
unbelievable. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, those are the types of projects I love to hear about.
I'm working with him. I'm working on getting him and the architect and the interior architect on a live call. I'll let you know for sure when it is, because that'll totally excite you. Anyway, the reason why I bring that up is that the person who asked this question said he's not good in construction, so he's wondering if you hired these people that they would do work for your house for free. Like, I didn't know.
And you know what?
That's a really good idea.
and some of it's funny. I talked to a guy yesterday who's a VP of construction at a company, and he was like, "Yeah, I've got my plumber here," and I was like, "Oh, you can't do that yourself?" He's like, "No, that's completely different to what I'm doing." And I was like, "Dude, you're VP at a major company," and we're just laughing about it. I said, "Well, we're probably about as hands-on effective. I'm probably about as hands-on effective as you then, if that's the case." But that's good. Maybe I'll do that.
That's funny.
Maybe I'll try and swing some free deals.
Yeah, but you would have thought that I would have done that with my website, working with nothing but designers and UX architects and all this other. No. I'm still using. I'm still outsourcing.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I want to see how good you are. Can you design my website and app for me?
Now, we're recruiters. We can't go there. We can't go there. Although, if you want to offer to do it, friends,
exactly.
You. So anyway, so we've got less than a minute left. So I want to ask this final question: what is it that recruiters should be doing to make the process better for candidates?
Wow, where to start? I think it just comes down to what we were talking about before. It's communication, respect, there's empathy in there, like understanding the situations that people are in. And I think for particularly third-party recruiters that are outside the organization, it's putting other people first, like above your needs. So not just always focusing on the end result, which is your fees and your quotas and all this sort of stuff, but it's understanding that when you actually put other people first, and sometimes maybe you do a favor for somebody, or you just connect them up, that in doing that, the rest is actually going to come. And it's actually doing it because it's the right thing to do, but it's also doing it because You just, we should be in this business because we actually want to see people do well in their lives. And I think if you're an internal recruiter, and you're trying to improve the candidate experience, I think for you guys, it's just understanding that even if you've only been at your company for 2 years, it's understanding that your company has a reputation that goes beyond those 2 years, and anything you do, might tarnish a relationship with a really good candidate 5 years down the line, or maybe somebody in the industry might say, I had a really terrible experience with that company. And so it's just understanding that we are the middleman in a lot of the situations, but that means that there's a lot of importance how we actually pass the baton from one person to another. And then the last thing I'd say to everybody is just, when you make a mistake, admit it, be humble, don't be afraid to make a mistake and admit to it. And at the end of the day, we're not doing brain surgery, so no one's going to die. But, in that case, it's just like the mistakes you make aren't earth shattering. So just just own it, admit to it, learn, and get better.
I love what you said.
That's my 2-minute long ending.
That's okay. I love what you said, though. Anything you do as a recruiter will reflect on the company you represent. Period. 100%. I mean, that's it. That is it. It's not just you, it's the entire company. And when you are the front line, the voice of the organization, the brand of that organization, the mission of that organization. And if you don't represent it correctly, you are hurting that company's ability to meet its business goals. And that is my dog. Usually it's my neighbor dog. I don't know if you can hear him, but between my 2 rescue dogs, her dog, we got dogs everywhere, so I apologize for the barking. But yeah, but she agrees with me. That's my sign.
Yeah, she was saying preach.
Yeah, that's what she was saying. So anyway, all right. Well, that went really fast. So Joel, I think I will need to have you on again and finish the conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe have you as part of a panel discussion and really get down to the root causes and conditions of what's happening out there. Because my fear, Joel, is that when this market picks up again, that the recruiters are going to be overwhelmed and they're not going to be able to handle the influx of candidates. The ATS systems are just going to be broken, right? And so now we're going to be creating horrific experiences for candidates who have been out of work for a long time and desperate. So we've got to address this now before that light switch goes back on. That's where I'm coming from. So, yeah, 100%. So I will hold you to that, Joel. I'm going to be tapping back into you again, and let's just fix this. So, all right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening after a long day at work.
All right, Lee, you too.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you soon.
Thanks. Bye, everybody, and thanks for joining.